The phone won't stop ringing. My hand trembles as I reach for it, the bruise on my wrist still purple and tender from where I caught myself falling. 2 days. It's been 2 days since Christmas Eve, and I'm sitting in Bernard's old recliner with an ice pack pressed against my temple, watching Marcus's name light up my screen for the 15th time. I should let it go to voicemail. My lawyer, Linda Hayes, told me not to answer. The restraining order paperwork sits on the coffee table beside me, waiting for my signature. But my thumb moves before my brain catches up. "Mom?" His voice cracks through the speaker. Not the confident, dismissive tone from 2 nights ago when he told me I'd die alone in this house. This voice shakes. This voice knows. "Mom, did you pay the mortgage this month?" The question hangs in the air between us like smoke. Outside my window, a crow lands on the frozen bird bath, pecking at ice. The morning sun turns the December frost into diamonds across my lawn, across the garden Bernard planted 40 years ago when we first moved to this neighborhood. Everything looks peaceful, clean. Nothing like the chaos churning in my chest. Nothing like the blood that soaked into my kitchen floor on Christmas Eve. "Why would you think I paid your mortgage?" I keep my voice steady, calm, the same tone I used to use when Marcus was 7 and lied about breaking Mrs. Patterson's window with his baseball. Silence. Then, "Because..." He exhales hard, the sound staticky through the phone. "Because the payment didn't go through. Our account shows insufficient funds, and I know you've helped us before when we were short." Usually. That word lands like a punch. I shift in the recliner and pain shoots through my ribs where they're still healing. The emergency room doctor at Mercy General said I was lucky nothing broke. Just severe bruising, he'd said, studying the x-rays. Deep tissue damage. The kind that takes weeks to fade, months maybe at my age. "I'm confused, Marcus." I watch the crow give up on the frozen water and fly away, its wings black against the white sky. 2 nights ago, you told me I had more money than I needed, that I was going to die alone in this house anyway. You said what I did with my money wasn't your business. The silence stretches. I can picture him in his kitchen right now, the one with the granite countertops I helped them pick out 3 years ago, the subway tile backsplash I paid for when they ran over budget. His face would be cycling through colors. Panic, realization, that same look he had when he was 12 and got caught shoplifting baseball cards from the corner store on 5th Street. "Mom, listen." "No, you listen." My voice stays soft, but there's steel underneath now. Steel that wasn't there before Christmas Eve. Steel that wasn't there before I lay bleeding on my kitchen floor while my only son and his wife walked out and left me there. Your wife stole $30,000 from me. You knew about it. You helped her do it. And when I confronted you both, you shoved me to the ground and left me bleeding on my kitchen floor with a concussion. I didn't mean... It was an accident. The police have photos, Marcus. I pause. Let the weight of those words sink in. The hospital has records. My lawyer has documentation of every single withdrawal Jessica made from my account. Dates, times, amounts, security footage from the ATM on Pinewood and 5th. "Mom, please." The desperation in his voice used to move me, used to make me reach for my checkbook, my credit card, whatever would fix things and make my son happy again. "They're going to foreclose. We'll lose the house. Everything. Just this once. Just this once." The laugh that comes out of me sounds foreign, sharp. "I gave you $20,000 for your down payment 7 years ago, from your father's life insurance. I've covered your car payments, your credit cards, your emergencies, and you repaid me by stealing, by putting your hands on me. I'm sorry. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught?" No answer. The crow that flew away earlier returns with another bird. They circle my yard together, looking for food in the frozen ground, finding nothing. "Let me tell you what happened 2 nights ago," I say quietly. "Let me tell you exactly how I got these bruises, this concussion, this new understanding of who my son really is. Then maybe you'll understand why I won't help you, why I can't. My name is Coraline Whitmore. I'm 74 years old. I'm a black woman who taught 2nd grade for 42 years at Lincoln Elementary School on the south side of town. I'm a widow of 5 years. I'm a mother to 1 son who I thought I knew. And 2 nights ago, on Christmas Eve, That son assaulted me in my own kitchen. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. Because this story, my story, it needs to be told. Not just for me, but for every mother who's ever been taken advantage of, every grandmother who's ever been dismissed, every older woman who's ever been called confused or senile when she dared to stand up for herself. This is the story of how I stopped being a doormat, how I stopped letting love be an excuse for abuse, how I chose myself. But to understand Christmas Eve, you need to understand the before. The life I'd built, the woman I used to be, 3 months before Christmas. September came to our neighborhood the way it always did, slowly, reluctantly, with summer heat still clinging to the afternoons, but the mornings finally cool enough to open windows. I'd wake at 6 o'clock to gospel music from my kitchen radio, some mornings Mahalia Jackson, others Kirk Franklin, depending on what the DJ at KJOY felt like playing. I was still the woman I'd been for 74 years. Coraline Elizabeth Whitmore, born Coraline Elizabeth Thompson in 1950 in this very city, in the hospital that's now a parking lot. Retired elementary school teacher, widow of 5 years, member of Bethel Baptist Church for 53 years, mother to Marcus Anthony Whitmore, age 45, my only child, my pride and joy. Or so I thought. My house sat on Elmwood Avenue, in the historically black neighborhood where Bernard and I bought our first and only home in 1984. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a front porch where Bernard used to sit every evening after his carpentry work, a backyard with the garden he planted that first spring. The house was 40 years old now, like our marriage had been when Bernard passed. Some things needed fixing. That water stain on the living room ceiling from a leak Bernard promised to repair, the back steps that sagged a little, the kitchen faucet that dripped no matter how tight you turned it. But it was ours. Bernard built the porch with his own hands. He'd planted that oak tree in the backyard when Marcus was born, said every son should have a tree to climb. The walls held 40 years of our lives. School photos of Marcus in his 2 big glasses, our wedding portrait from 1970, pictures of Bernard's parents who'd been sharecroppers in Mississippi, my grandmother who'd been born enslaved. This house was more than wood and nails. It was legacy. It was proof that we'd made it, that we'd built something to pass down. I kept myself busy in those days. Book club every Friday at 2 o'clock, hosted by Dorothy Washington at her place on Maple Street. We were 5 women, all between 65 and 78, all black, all either widowed or long married. We'd gather in Dorothy's living room with its plastic-covered furniture and walls full of family photos, and we'd discuss whatever novel someone picked. Historical fiction mostly, sometimes mysteries, never romance. We were past the age of needing happy endings spelled out for us. We'd lived enough to know they were rare. Wednesdays, I volunteered at the public library downtown, shelving books in the children's section, the same section where I used to bring Marcus when he was small. Saturday mornings, I attended services at Bethel Baptist, sitting in the same pew I'd sat in for 5 decades, listening to Reverend Thompson preach about forgiveness and grace and turning the other cheek. I was good at that. Turning the other cheek. Being gracious. Being the kind of woman who smoothed things over. My Saturdays belonged to Marcus and Jessica. I'd drive to their house in the suburbs, 32 minutes from my front door to theirs, I'd timed it, and cook elaborate dinners. Soul food, the kind Bernard used to love. Fried chicken with a crust that crackled just right. Collard greens cooked low and slow with ham hocks. Macaroni and cheese, the real kind, not from a box. Cornbread that melted in your mouth. Sweet potato pie from my grandmother's recipe, the one she'd taught me when I was 8 years old, standing on a stool in her kitchen. I'd arrive at their house at 4 o'clock, leave at 9. 5 hours of cooking while Jessica sat in the living room watching reality TV, her feet up on the ottoman, her designer heels kicked off by the door. 5 hours of watching them eat what I'd made, barely looking up from their phones between bites. 5 hours of Jessica making comments. You know, Coraline, Bernard used to make the chicken with more seasoning, she'd say, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. Never Mom. 5 years married to my son, and it was always Coraline. Clipped, professional, like I was someone she worked with, not family. I'm just trying to help you improve. My mother's recipe has paprika and cayenne. Maybe try that next time? And I'd smile, say thank you, tell her I appreciated the feedback. Because that's what good mothers do, right? They take it, They absorb the little cuts and pretend they don't bleed. Jessica Murphy Whitmore, 42 years old, white, blonde, beautiful, in that sharp-featured way that looked good in photos. She worked in marketing for some tech company downtown, made good money from what Marcus said. She liked expensive things, Louis Vuitton bags, Cartier watches, that bright red Burberry coat I'd bought her last Christmas for $800 because she'd mentioned wanting it. She'd smiled when she opened that gift, the first genuine smile she'd ever given me, and I'd felt so pleased, so hopeful that maybe we were finally connecting. I should have known better. Marcus had met Jessica at some work conference 6 years ago. They'd married after a year of dating, and I'd been thrilled. My son, settling down. My son, starting a family. Maybe grandchildren soon, I'd thought. Maybe a little girl or boy who'd call me grandma, who I could spoil the way grandmothers are supposed to. But 6 years later, still no grandchildren. And Jessica made it clear that subject was off limits. "We're focusing on our careers right now, Coraline," she'd say, that same polite smile that never reached her eyes. "Maybe in a few years." I told myself it was fine. Modern couples waited. It wasn't like my generation, married at 20, pregnant at 21. Times had changed. But there were other signs, little things I pushed down, ignored, explained away to myself in the quiet of my own mind. Like how Jessica asked about Bernard's pension. "Just curious," she'd said one Saturday while I was mashing potatoes in their kitchen. "For when we're planning our own retirement, how much was Bernard's worth? Combined with your teacher's pension, you must be pretty comfortable." Her eyes had gotten sharp when I mentioned the amounts, calculating, or how Marcus stopped asking how I was doing. Our Sunday phone calls, which used to be about catching up, swapping stories, became transactional. "Mom, can you watch the dogs?" "Mom, our dryer broke. Do you know a good repairman?" "Mom, it's Jessica's birthday coming up. What should I get her?" Never. "How are you feeling? What have you been reading? Did your hip pain get better?" I'd become a resource, a free dog sitter, a source of advice and money and labor. But I didn't see it clearly. Not until that Friday in September. Friday, September 27th. Book club got canceled. Dorothy called everyone at 1:30, her voice tight with stress. Her daughter Ashley had gone into labor 3 weeks early, and Dorothy was heading to St. Mary's Hospital. "I'm so sorry, ladies," she'd said. "Baby waits for no one." I'd already showered, dressed in my good slacks and the purple blouse Marcus had given me for Mother's Day, made the lemon pound cake I was supposed to bring. No point going home to an empty house for the afternoon. Bernard used to say I didn't know how to sit still, and he was right. Idle hands, idle mind, that's what my grandmother used to say. So I drove, aimless, down Pinewood Avenue past the new coffee shop, through Washington Park, where couples walked dogs in the early fall sunshine. Beautiful day. The kind Bernard used to love. We'd have gone for a drive, maybe. Found a roadside stand selling apples, bought a peck to make pie. I turned onto 5th Street without thinking. The ATM was there, outside Riverside Bank, the same bank Bernard and I had used for 30 years. I needed cash for the farmer's market tomorrow morning, for the woman who sold fresh peaches. That's when I saw it. The red coat. Burberry, bright crimson wool, designer label. The one I'd given Jessica last Christmas. The one that cost $800 that I'd saved for by skipping my own shopping for 3 months. She was standing at the ATM, her back to me, but I'd recognize that coat anywhere. I'd picked it out myself, wrapped it myself, watched her face light up when she opened the box on Christmas morning. I sat in my Toyota Camry, the 2006 model, with the dent in the rear bumper and the air conditioning that only worked on the highest setting, and stared. Why would Jessica be at this bank? They used First National, across town near their house. Marcus had told me. Better interest rates, better online system. I'd even written checks to Marcus and Jessica Whitmore First National account for various emergencies over the years. Why would she be at Riverside, 32 minutes from her house? I watched as she finished her transaction, watched as she pulled something from the machine. Cash. A thick stack of it, held together with the bank's white paper band. She counted it quickly, her fingers moving fast, practiced, then glanced around the parking lot. I ducked down in my seat. Stupid instinct, like I was the one doing something wrong. She stuffed the cash in her Louis Vuitton purse, the $2,000 one Marcus had bought her for their anniversary last year, the purchase he'd called me about asking to borrow $800 to cover. and walked to their Mercedes. The white one with the dent in the rear bumper from when Marcus backed into a pole at Target. She drove away. I sat there for 10 minutes, heart pounding in my chest, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went pale. Telling myself there was an explanation. Maybe she was getting cash for a surprise. Maybe Marcus sent her. Maybe I was wrong about which bank they used. But something felt off. Rotten. Like when you open the refrigerator and smell spoiled milk before you even see the carton. I went inside. "Mrs. Whitmore!" Susan Williams smiled when she saw me. Susan had been working at Riverside for 15 years, had helped me open new accounts after Bernard died, had held my hand, literally held my hand, while I cried signing paperwork 5 years ago. "What can I do for you today?" "I need to check my statements." My voice sounded distant, hollow, like it was coming from somewhere outside my body. "My checking account, the one with the emergency access card." Susan's smile faded. She pulled up my account on her computer, her fingers clicking across the keyboard. Scrolled down, down, down. Her smile disappeared entirely. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said carefully. "Is everything all right?" "I don't know." I leaned closer to the screen, squinting at the numbers. "Can you show me the last 6 months of withdrawals?" That's when I saw them. Friday, September 20th, 2:15 p.m. $3,000 withdrawal. ATM on Pinewood and 5th. Friday, September 13th, 2:15 p.m. $3,000 withdrawal. Same ATM. Friday, September 6th. Friday, August 30th. Friday, August 23rd. On and on and on. Every Friday. Always $3,000. Always at 2:15 in the afternoon. Always when I was at book club. 8 months of Fridays. 32 withdrawals. 96,000. No. Wait. I counted again, my fingers shaking as I traced down the list on Susan's screen. $24,000. 8 months, 32 weeks, but not every week. Some gaps, but still. $24,000 gone from my account in neat $3,000 chunks. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Susan's voice was very gentle. "Did you make these withdrawals?" "No." The word came out as a whisper. "Do you know who has access to this account?" "My son, Marcus. I gave him a debit card 5 years ago, for emergencies only. When Bernard died and I couldn't think straight. I gave Marcus emergency access, just in case." "Has he ever used it before?" "Once, 2 years ago when his transmission died. He took out $1,500, paid me back in 2 months. Susan's face told me this wasn't a normal situation. This wasn't a son using his mother's emergency card anymore. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said slowly. "These withdrawals, do you have security footage?" "We have security footage from every ATM transaction for 6 months. After that it's archived, but we can request it. Would you like me to pull what we have?" My mouth was dry. My heart was a drum in my chest. "Yes, please." They pulled the footage, sent it to my email, told me I should file a police report, said words like fraud and theft and investigation. Their voices buzzed like insects in my ears, distant and strange, while the world tilted sideways and nothing made sense anymore. I drove home in a daze, sat in my driveway for an hour, staring at my house. The house Bernard built with his hands, the house where I raised Marcus, the house where I'd been safe. When I finally went inside, everything looked the same but felt different, like walking through a stranger's home, like all the furniture had been moved 2 inches to the left and nothing quite fit anymore. I opened my laptop with shaking hands, clicked the email from Riverside Bank, downloaded the security footage, hit play. There she was, Jessica Murphy Whitmore, in that red Burberry coat, Friday, September 20th, 2:17 p.m., sliding a card into the ATM, punching in numbers, taking cash, looking around quickly, then stuffing it into her purse. I clicked the next video. Friday, September 13th. Same thing. Same coat, same practiced movements, same guilty glance around the parking lot. Friday, September 6th. August 30th. August 23rd. I watched 8 months of Fridays. Watched my daughter-in-law steal from me in high definition, her face clear in every frame. Sometimes she looked nervous, checking over her shoulder. Sometimes she looked bored, scrolling on her phone while my money came out of the machine. Once, God help me, Once she was laughing at something on her screen while $3,000 of my money slid into her hands. The Mercedes was always in the background, Marcus's car, which meant either he was with her or she had his keys, or... I called Marcus's number before I could talk myself out of it. It rang 4 times. Then, "Hey, Mom." His voice was distracted. I heard keyboard clicking in the background. "Kinda busy. What's up?" "The debit card I gave you for emergencies." My voice didn't shake. Strange. I felt like I should be shaking, crying, screaming. But my voice came out calm. Flat. "The one connected to my checking account. Where is it?" Pause. The keyboard clicking stopped. In my wallet." "Why?" "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure. Mom, what's this about?" "Check right now, please." I heard rustling. A drawer opening. Silence that stretched too long. "It's here," he said finally. "Right where it always is, in my wallet. Can you tell me what this is about?" "Can you read me the number on the card?" "Mom, seriously, read me the number, Marcus?" He did. I checked it against the account number on my statement. Same card, same number. "When's the last time you used it?" I asked. "I don't know. 2 years ago? When my transmission died? You said it was for emergencies only." "Have you ever given it to Jessica?" The silence stretched too long, stretched into a chasm. "Marcus?" "She needed it once," he said quietly, carefully, like he was picking his words from a minefield. "Last December, for Christmas shopping. Our credit cards were maxed out and she had gifts to buy, and I told her she could just take out a little. How much is a little? I don't know. 3,000? She said she'd pay it back right away." My living room tilted. I gripped the arm of Bernard's recliner, the leather cracked and soft under my fingers, the chair that still smelled like his Old Spice cologne 5 years later. "Did she pay it back?" My voice was very, very calm. I assumed." His voice changed, shifted into something defensive. "Why are you asking about this? Did something happen with your account? I'll call you back." I ended the call before he could respond. I spent 3 days gathering evidence. I pulled every bank statement from the past 8 months, made a spreadsheet on my computer. Marcus had taught me how to use Excel years ago, showed me how to make neat columns and rows, with dates and amounts and times. I requested more security footage. I built a case like I was preparing for trial. Because maybe I was. Friday night I lay awake staring at Bernard's water stain on the ceiling, adding numbers in my head. 24,000 in withdrawals from January through August. Then checking my September and October statements. 6,000 more. 2 months of additional theft I hadn't caught until now. $30,000. Gone. That was my emergency fund. My surgery money. I needed a hip replacement next spring. Had been putting it off, dealing with the pain, because the surgery was expensive, even with Medicare. That money was supposed to fill the gap, supposed to cover what insurance wouldn't. It was also supposed to last me. Social Security and Bernard's teacher's pension wasn't much. I lived carefully. Clipped coupons, bought generic, skipped things I wanted so I'd have enough for things I needed. And Jessica had taken it in $3,000 chunks every Friday while I was at book club talking about fictional characters' problems, while I was making my lemon pound cake and living my small, careful life. The anger came slowly. Then, all at once. I made a decision. Christmas Eve. I'd invite them over like always. Make dinner like always. And then I'd confront them both. I wanted to see their faces when I showed them the proof. Needed to understand how they justified this to themselves. Needed to give them a chance to explain, apologize, make it right. Some part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, still thought maybe there was an explanation, a misunderstanding, something that would make sense of this betrayal, that would let me keep my son, keep my family, keep believing that the people you love don't destroy you. I was wrong. 3 days after the discovery, I didn't call Marcus back that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Instead, I tested him. Sunday evening, our usual phone call time, I dialed his number, kept my voice light. Normal. "Hi, sweetheart, just calling to confirm Saturday. You and Jessica are still coming for Christmas Eve dinner, right?" "Yeah, Mom, same as always." He sounded distracted, tired. "Listen, I've got to finish this project." "Of course, honey. I'll let you go. Love you." Love you too. He didn't ask how I was, didn't mention the debit card conversation from 3 days ago. Didn't seem to remember he'd admitted his wife had used my emergency card, that she'd taken $3,000 and never paid it back. Or maybe he remembered perfectly well. Maybe he just didn't care. I called him again Wednesday. Casual. Marcus, I was going through some old papers. That debit card I gave you. Have you kept track of when you've used it? For my records? A pause. Then, I told you, Mom. Just that once. 2 years ago. Why are you so worried about this? No reason, sweetheart. Just organizing my finances. You know how forgetful I'm getting at my age. I let my voice go vague, confused, the way Jessica always implied I was. Can't keep track of things like I used to. Maybe you should see a doctor about that. His voice softened with what might have been genuine concern, or might have been something else. Memory issues are common at your age. There it was. The seed they'd planted. The narrative they'd been building. Old woman. Forgetful. Confused. Can't trust her own mind. I almost laughed. Almost told him right then that I had security footage, bank statements, enough evidence to bury them both. But I didn't. Because I needed to see their faces. Needed to watch them lie to me one more time before I burned their world down. You're probably right, I said softly. I'll mention it to Dr. Peterson at my next appointment. Good. Listen, Mom, I've really got to go. See you Saturday, honey. 4 o'clock. Actually, Jessica wants to come early. Help you cook. She said 4:30? Help me cook. Jessica, who'd never lifted a finger in my kitchen except to criticize, suddenly wanted to help. That's wonderful, I said. I'll see you both then. After I hung up, I sat in Bernard's recliner for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I called Linda Hayes. Linda Hayes, attorney at law. I'd met Linda 5 years ago when Bernard died, when I needed help with the estate, with changing titles and accounts and all the paperwork that comes with death. She was a black woman in her late 50s, sharp as a tack, with silver streaks in her natural hair and reading glasses that hung on a beaded chain around her neck. She'd held my hand through Bernard's funeral arrangements, had made sure I wasn't cheated by the funeral home, hadn't let them upsell me on caskets and services I didn't need. She'd been kind but firm, protective but professional. Coraline, her voice was warm when she answered. It's good to hear from you. How are you managing? I need help, Linda. Legal help. Her tone changed immediately, sharpened. What's happened? I told her everything. The ATM sighting, the bank statements, the security footage, Marcus's admission that Jessica had the card, the $30,000 gone, silence on the other end of the line. Then, Jesus, Coraline, this is elder financial abuse. This is serious. I know. Do you have documentation? Bank statements going back 8 months, security footage, account numbers, dates and times. I've made a spreadsheet. Good. That's good. Papers rustled in the background. What do you want to do about this? I want to confront them. Christmas Eve. I'm having them over for dinner. Coraline, I need to see their faces, Linda. I need to hear what they say when I show them the proof. My voice cracked. I need to know if my son is really this person. If he really helped his wife steal from me. And if he did? Then I press charges. Both of them. More silence. Then Linda's voice, gentle but firm. I think you should file a police report first. Document this officially. Then confront them with a lawyer present, or don't confront them at all. Let the system handle it. I can't do that. Not yet. Not until I give them a chance to explain. Coraline, please, Linda, just be ready. Have the paperwork drawn up, restraining orders, payment plans, whatever I need. I'll call you after Christmas, I promise. She sighed. All right, but I'm not happy about this. And the minute you feel unsafe, you call 911. Don't try to handle this alone. I won't. That was a lie, but she didn't need to know that. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. I woke at 6 o'clock, same as always. Gospel music on the radio, the Weenans singing Tomorrow, while I showered and dressed. I chose my red sweater, the one Marcus had given me 3 years ago for my 71st birthday. Soft cashmere, probably expensive, though he'd never said. One of the few gifts he'd given me in recent years that wasn't just a gift card. I started cooking at 7. Turkey breast for 3 people, no point making a whole bird. Mashed potatoes with real butter and cream, the way Bernard liked them. Collard greens cooked low and slow with ham hocks and a splash of vinegar. Macaroni and cheese, 3 kinds of cheese, baked until the top was golden and crispy. Cornbread from scratch, my grandmother's recipe that I could make in my sleep. Rolls that I'd let rise twice for maximum fluffiness. And pies. Sweet potato pie with a lattice crust. Pecan pie with Georgia pecans I'd ordered special. My grandmother's recipes, passed down through 4 generations of women who'd cooked in kitchens that didn't belong to them, who'd fed families that didn't always appreciate them. I worked methodically. Precisely. Each dish prepared with care, even though I knew how this dinner would end. Even though I knew that by tonight, everything would be broken. The bank statement sat folded in my apron pocket. I'd touched it so many times over the past 3 days that the paper had gone soft, almost like fabric, like something I could carry close to my heart. I wasn't nervous. That surprised me. I'd spent 3 months being the woman who accepted things, who explained away red flags, who convinced herself that family was supposed to feel like this. Slightly painful, mostly disappointing, but binding nonetheless. That woman was gone. The woman rolling out pie dough in her kitchen at 8 o'clock on Christmas morning was someone harder. Someone who'd spent 74 years being kind and gotten nothing but theft and dismissal to show for it. The cookies were in the oven, sugar cookies shaped like stars and trees because Marcus had loved them as a child, when the doorbell rang. 4:47. Early. They weren't supposed to arrive until 6. Through the frosted glass of my front door, I saw the Mercedes in my driveway, exhaust puffing white into the December air. Saw 2 figures on my porch. I wiped flour from my hands. Checked my reflection in the hall mirror. The same mirror that had been there for 40 years, that had reflected my face getting older, year by year, smoothed my hair, put on the smile I'd practiced. Then I opened the door. "Mom!" Marcus swept inside, bringing cold air and expensive cologne. Tom Ford, probably, the kind that cost $200 a bottle. He kissed my cheek without looking at me, already moving toward the living room. "We're early. Jessica wanted to help with dinner." Jessica glided past, heels clicking on my hardwood floors. She carried a store-bought pie, still in its plastic container from Walmart. Apple, from the label, $3.99. "Merry Christmas, Coraline." Never Mom, never even Mother. Always my first name, like we were co-workers who tolerated each other at company picnics. I closed the door, followed them to my kitchen. My heart was beating fast now, but my hands stayed steady. "Wine," Jessica announced, opening my refrigerator without asking. She pulled out the bottle of Chardonnay I'd been saving, a nice one, $30 that Dorothy had given me for my birthday. Jessica poured 2 glasses, one for Marcus, one for herself, nothing for me. She sat at my kitchen table, Bernard's table, the one we'd bought when Marcus was a baby, solid oak built to last, and sipped her wine. Her nails were freshly manicured, French tips that probably cost $60. Her sweater was cashmere, cream-colored, with a designer label I could see peeking out at the neckline. "You know, Coraline," she said, crossing her legs, "I saw the cutest coat at Nordstrom yesterday, camel cashmere. On sale for only $1,200. I was thinking maybe for my birthday next month?" My birthday was in 3 weeks. No one had mentioned it. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through her words like a knife through butter, "I need to discuss something important." Marcus loosened his tie. He was wearing a suit, Hugo Boss if I remembered right, the kind that cost over $1,000, for a casual Christmas Eve dinner at his mother's house. "Can it wait, Mom? We've had a long day." "No." I pulled the bank statement from my pocket, unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases against the table. "It can't." The paper crinkled in the sudden silence. The radio kept playing. Nat King Cole singing the Christmas song. Wrong soundtrack for what was about to happen. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Just for a second, but I caught it. "What's that?" Marcus reached for the statement. I held it back. "This is from my checking account, the one I opened after your father died. The one only you have access to, Marcus. For emergencies." I looked at my son, really looked at him. Tried to find the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the backyard, who'd cried when other kids got hurt, who'd once told me I was his favorite person in the whole world. I didn't see that boy anywhere. "Someone's been withdrawing money," I continued. "Large amounts, $30,000 over the past 8 months. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Jessica sipped her wine like we were discussing the weather. Marcus's jaw tightened. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. I turned to Jessica. Did you take money from my account? She set her glass down with a sharp click. Excuse me? The withdrawals started 2 weeks after Marcus gave you his debit card, the same card connected to my account. My hands didn't shake anymore. Anger had burned away the fear. ATM transactions, always exactly $3,000, always on Fridays at 2:15 p.m. when I'm at book club. Jessica laughed. Cold, brittle, like ice cracking. This is unbelievable. Marcus, are you hearing this? Your mother is accusing me of— The bank has security footage, I interrupted, from every transaction for the past 6 months. That's you, Jessica, in your red Burberry coat, the one I bought you last Christmas, taking my money. The laughter died. Marcus stared at the statement on the counter, his face cycling through colors. Pale, then red, then pale again. Mom, you're confused. You probably authorized these and forgot. You're getting older. Maybe you should see a doctor. I'm 74, not senile. Heat crawled up my neck. I keep perfect records. I know every penny in that account. Memory issues are common at your age. Jessica moved closer to Marcus, her hand on his arm. United front. My grandmother had the same problem. Started accusing people of stealing from her when really she'd just forgotten. Don't you dare gaslight me. My voice came out sharp as broken glass. Something cracked inside my chest. All those dinners I'd cooked. All those times I'd watched their dogs, watered their plants, picked up their mail. The $20,000 down payment I'd given them. The car payments, the credit card bills. 7 years of being useful, being needed, being family. And this was what I got. Theft and lies and being called confused. I saw the security footage, I said, my voice shaking now with rage. That's your car, Jessica. That's you, taking my money. Money I needed for my hip surgery. Money I saved for emergencies. You stole from me. The silence stretched like taffy. Jessica's mask finally slipped. Her pretty face twisted into something ugly, something that had probably been there all along, hiding behind polite smiles and constructive criticism. Stole? She laughed again, meaner this time. You owe us that money, Coraline, after everything we've done for you. Visiting every month, pretending to care about your boring stories about your boring students and your boring book club. That's worth something. The words hit like physical blows. I grabbed the counter to stay upright. Get out of my house. Gladly. Jessica grabbed her purse, that $2,000 Louis Vuitton. I'm tired of playing happy family with you anyway. You're pathetic, you know that? Clinging to money like it'll keep you warm at night. Like it matters. You're going to die alone in this house, and your money won't make any difference. But Marcus didn't move. He stood frozen, his face a mask I didn't recognize. Mom, his voice came out quiet, flat. You need to understand. The house payment was due. We were going to lose everything. Understand what? My voice was rising now, getting shrill. I didn't care. That you let your wife rob me? That you're defending her? We were desperate. The market's been bad, my bonus didn't come through, Jessica's company downsized. You make 6 figures, I was shouting now. You drive a Mercedes. You just got back from skiing in Aspen. You have way more than most people ever will. And you stole from your own mother. That's not— He stopped, started again. What you do with your money isn't your business anymore, Mom. You have way more than you need. What are you saving it for? You're going to die alone in this house anyway. Might as well help your family while you can. The words hit like a slap, like he'd reached across the counter and put his hands on me. I grabbed the edge of the granite I'd helped them pick out, that I'd paid $800 extra for when they went over budget, and held on. How dare you? Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of them. That money was for my medical bills, for the surgery I need next year, for my future, for my security, and you just took it, like I didn't matter. Like I was just a bank account with no feelings. That's not— Mom, you're making this— Marcus moved toward me, his face twisted with something between anger and guilt. Get out. My voice shook. Both of you, now. Jessica was already at the door, her coat in her hands. Come on, Marcus, let's go. Let her rot here with her precious money. But Marcus hesitated, stood there in my kitchen, in front of the stove where I'd cooked him 1,000 meals, at the table where he'd done his homework as a child in the house his father built. "This is your fault," he said finally. "You made us do this. If you'd just been reasonable, if you'd just helped us when we asked." "I gave you $20,000, I screamed. "I've given you everything. It wasn't enough." And there it was, the truth, raw and ugly and final. It would never be enough. I would never be enough. Not as a mother, not as a person, not as a source of endless money and support and sacrifice. I grabbed the wine glass Jessica had poured for herself, my Chardonnay, from my refrigerator, that she'd taken without asking, and threw it. Not at them. Never at them. But it shattered against the cabinet beside Marcus's head, sending white wine and glass spraying across my Christmas decorations. Across the cookies I'd spent hours making. Across everything. Everything happened fast after that. Marcus lunged forward. I thought he was leaving. Thought maybe he'd finally heard me. Finally understood. But his hands found my shoulders instead. Found them and shoved. My hip, my bad hip, the one that needed surgery, cracked against the kitchen counter. Pain exploded through my side, white and hot and shocking. I'd never felt anything like it. I stumbled backward. My heel caught on the rug, the Santa Fe rug Bernard and I bought on our honeymoon 44 years ago. The floor rushed up to meet me. Too fast. My head bounced off the hardwood with a sickening thud that echoed through my skull. Sound and sensation merged into one terrible moment. The crack, the pain, the ringing in my ears. Through the ringing, I heard Jessica's voice, distant and distorted. "Jesus, Marcus, what did you do?" I lay there staring at my ceiling, at the water stain Bernard had promised to fix before he died. Blood trickled warm down my temple, copper-tasting when it reached my mouth. Marcus's face appeared above me, swimming in and out of focus. "This is your fault," he hissed. "You pushed us to this. If you'd just been reasonable." Then Jessica's face joined his, her features twisted with disgust. "You're insane. You know that? Accusing us of theft. Stay away from us, Coraline. We're done with you." Their footsteps retreated, heavy, quick, running from what they'd done. The front door slammed. The Mercedes engine roared to life, faded away into Christmas Eve silence. I lay there alone. The radio was still playing. Silent night now. Holy night. All is calm. All is bright. I don't know how long I stayed on that floor. Long enough for the cookies to burn in the oven. Long enough for the smoke alarm to start beeping. Long enough for the room to stop spinning quite so fast. When I finally sat up, every muscle screamed. I touched my head. My hand came away red. Bright red. Christmas red. The counter had left a bruise blooming purple across my hip, my side, my ribs. I crawled to the phone on the wall, pulled myself up using the counter for balance, my legs shaking, my vision blurring. My fingers shook as I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? I need help. My voice cracked. Broke. I've been assaulted. The dispatcher's voice went sharp, professional. Are you in immediate danger? Is the attacker still present? No, they left, but I'm hurt. I'm bleeding. Help is on the way, ma'am. Stay on the line with me. Can you tell me your name? Coraline. Coraline Whitmore. Coraline, can you tell me what happened? And lying there on my kitchen floor, blood drying on my face, my body broken, my heart shattered, I told her. I told her everything. The paramedics arrived in 12 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on my kitchen wall, the one Bernard had hung crooked 40 years ago and we'd never bothered to fix, tick from 8:47 to 8:59. Each second felt like an hour. The young paramedic's name was Carlos. He couldn't have been more than 25, with kind brown eyes that reminded me of my students. The older one was Jean, a black woman maybe 50, with silver-streaked braids and efficient hands. Mrs. Whitmore? Jean knelt beside me on the floor where I'd finally managed to sit up, my back against the cabinet. Can you tell me where it hurts? Everywhere. It came out as a whisper. They asked questions I answered through tears that I couldn't stop anymore. Where does it hurt? Did you lose consciousness? Can you tell me what happened? What's your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? 10. Everything was 10. They took pictures of my injuries. The gash on my temple, still bleeding sluggishly. The bruise spreading across my hip like spilled ink. The scrape on my elbow where I'd tried to catch myself. The swelling on my ribs. "Ma'am," Jean said quietly while Carlos radioed for police backup. "You should press charges. This is assault, domestic violence. It doesn't matter who did it." It was my son. The words felt strange in my mouth. Foreign. My only son. Jean's eyes were kind but firm. "Doesn't matter. Family doesn't get a pass on putting hands on you. This is serious, Mrs. Whitmore. You could have a concussion. Your hip might be fractured." I know. I did know. I'd taught second grade for 42 years. I'd filed reports about bruises on children, about suspicious injuries. I knew what abuse looked like. I'd just never imagined I'd be on this side of it. The police came next. Officer Rodriguez, a Latino man in his 40s with a wedding ring and tired eyes. Officer Kim, younger, Asian, with a notebook and a gentle voice. More questions, more photos. They gave me a case number, 24-87532, and said someone from the detective unit would follow up, asked if I felt safe, if I had somewhere else to go. "This is my home," I said. My voice was stronger now, hardened by something cold settling in my chest. "They don't get to take this too." After they left, after Carlos and Jean had bandaged my head and insisted I go to the hospital, I refused, signed a waiver against medical advice. I sat in Bernard's recliner with an ice pack pressed against my skull. The house felt different now, violated, like Marcus and Jessica had brought something rotten inside, and it was still here, clinging to the walls, seeping into the floorboards. I'd built my life around being a good mother, a good wife, a good woman. I'd sacrificed and compromised and swallowed my needs until I'd nearly disappeared. And what had it gotten me? Lying on my kitchen floor, bleeding, while my son told me it was my fault. No more. I pulled out my phone, called Linda Hayes, left a voicemail with the basics, my voice steady now, mechanical, called my financial advisor next, left another message. By the time I finished making calls, my tears had dried. My hands had stopped shaking. I made one more call, to Dorothy. "Coraline?" Her voice was warm with sleep. "Honey, it's almost midnight. Is everything okay?" "No," the word came out broken. "Dorothy, I need you." "I'm on my way." Dorothy arrived 20 minutes later with her daughter Ashley, the one who'd just had a baby, and Ashley's husband Jerome. They took one look at me, and Dorothy started crying. "Who did this?" Jerome's voice was tight with anger. "Marcus." I couldn't say more, couldn't explain. The words caught in my throat like broken glass. Dorothy held me while I cried. Really cried this time. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and dark, from a place where you keep all the hurts you've been pretending don't exist. Ashley made tea. Jerome called his cousin who was a nurse, put her on speakerphone so she could walk me through checking for signs of concussion. They stayed until 3 in the morning, taking shifts watching me sleep in case I needed to go to the hospital after all. When they finally left, Dorothy squeezed my hand. "You press charges, Coraline. You hear me? I don't care if he's your son. What he did, that's evil. That's unforgivable." "I know," I said. And I did. Christmas Day passed in silence. I didn't cook, didn't decorate, just iced my injuries and made lists. Detailed lists of every dollar in every account, every asset in my name, every piece of evidence I had. The day after Christmas, my phone rang at 9:23 a.m. Marcus's name lit up the screen. For a moment, I just stared at it, watched it ring, let my thumb hover over the decline button. But curiosity won. Or maybe it was something darker, the need to hear what excuse he'd manufacture, what apology he'd craft. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Mom, did you pay the mortgage this month?" And we were back to the beginning, full circle. I sat in Bernard's recliner, looked out at the winter-dead garden. A crow pecked at the frozen ground, searching for something that wasn't there. "Why would you think I paid your mortgage?" "Because..." He exhaled hard. "The payment didn't go through. Our account shows insufficient funds, and I know you've helped us before when we were short. Usually." "I'm confused, Marcus." I kept my voice pleasant, almost curious. 2 nights ago you told me I had more money than I needed. that I was going to die alone in this house anyway. You said what I did with my money wasn't my business. Silence. I could picture him in his kitchen, his face cycling through panic and realization. The moment he understood that I wasn't going to save him, not this time, not ever again. Mom, listen. No, you listen. My voice stayed calm, but steel ran through it now. Steel forged in pain and betrayal and lying on my kitchen floor alone. Your wife stole $30,000 from me. You knew about it. You helped her do it. And when I confronted you both, you shoved me to the ground and left me bleeding on my kitchen floor with a concussion and bruised ribs. I didn't mean... It was an accident. The police have photos, Marcus. Mercy General Hospital has records. My lawyer has documentation of every withdrawal Jessica made. Bank statements, security footage, witness statements. I paused. Let that sink in. So no, Marcus, I did not pay your mortgage. Mom, please. Desperation bled through the phone like blood through gauze. They're going to foreclose. We'll lose the house, everything. Just this once. Just help us one more time. Just this once. The words tasted bitter. I gave you $20,000 for your down payment. I've helped with your car payments, your credit cards, your emergencies for 7 years. And you repaid me by stealing, by putting your hands on me, by leaving me bleeding on the floor on Christmas Eve. I'm sorry. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? No answer. The crow in my garden flew away, left the frozen earth empty. Here's what's going to happen, I said. My voice was cold now, colder than the December morning outside my window. You and Jessica are going to repay every cent you stole, with interest. My lawyer is drafting a payment plan. You'll sign it or I'll file criminal charges for theft and assault. We don't have that kind of money. Then get it. Sell the Mercedes, downsize, get second jobs. I don't care. My voice didn't waver. You have until January 15th to make the first payment. $5,000, then $1,000 a month until the full $30,000 plus interest is repaid. Mom, please, we can work this out as a family. Family? The word came out like a laugh, sharp, joyless. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't assault. You want to know what family is, Marcus? It's the people who show up when you're lying on the floor bleeding. That wasn't you. I could hear Jessica in the background now, her voice shrill, muffled. Is that her? Let me talk to her. One more thing. I cut through his response. You're both no longer authorized on any of my accounts. My lawyer has already filed restraining orders. You come within 500 feet of me or my property, you'll be arrested. Do you understand? You can't do this. Watch me. I paused. Let the silence stretch. When I spoke again, my voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You reap what you sow, Marcus. That's what my grandmother used to say. Your grandmother. The woman who was born a slave and died free. She taught me that actions have consequences. I should have taught you the same thing. I ended the call. My hands didn't shake. My heartbeat was steady and strong. Through the window, snow began to fall. Soft. Quiet. Covering the dead garden in white. January 15th came and went. No payment. No contact beyond the 17 calls, 12 voicemails, and 43 texts I'd blocked after the first week. So Linda filed the charges. Theft, elder financial abuse, assault and battery. I thought I'd feel guilty. Thought there'd be some moment where maternal instinct kicked in and I'd want to take it all back. Save him one more time. That moment never came. Instead, I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying a weight for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. The criminal investigation moved slowly. Detective Sarah Rodriguez, no relation to Officer Rodriguez who'd come Christmas Eve, kept me updated. Said these cases took time, said I was doing the right thing, said she wished more victims had the courage to follow through. Victim. I was a victim now. Strange how a word could be both accurate and completely wrong at the same time. In March, I got a call from a real estate agent. Mrs. Whitmore, hi, I'm calling about the property at 847 Oakmont Drive. Your son and daughter-in-law's home. It's going into foreclosure next week. I wanted to reach out in case you were interested in purchasing it to help them out. I understand you've helped them financially in the past. I almost laughed. No, thank you. Are you sure? I know how hard these situations can be for families. If you're interested, we could work out a payment plan, I'm sure. I hung up and felt nothing. No guilt, no sadness, just the quiet satisfaction of watching consequences unfold exactly as they should. April brought my hip surgery. I hired a nurse to stay with me for the first week. Her name was Patricia Johnson, and she reminded me of my sister Ruth, who'd passed 10 years ago. Kind without being pitying, efficient without being cold. You live alone? She asked while helping me into bed the first night after surgery, her hands gentle on my arm. Yes. No kids? I have a son. The words felt mechanical, true but meaningless. We're not in contact. She didn't push, just nodded like she'd heard that story 1,000 times before. Maybe she had. The surgery went well. Physical therapy was hard, but I did it. 3 times a week at first, then twice, then once. By May, I was walking without a cane. By June, I could garden again. I planted tomatoes, basil, marigolds to keep the pests away. Got dirt under my fingernails and felt more alive than I had in years. Dorothy came by one afternoon in late June, found me deadheading roses in the backyard. You look good, she said, settling into the patio chair Bernard had built 20 years ago. She meant it. I feel good. I heard about Marcus and Jessica. The trial's set for September. Yes. Dorothy studied my face, looking for something. Regret? Sadness? Whatever she was searching for, she didn't find it. Good, she said finally. They deserved worse. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking lemonade, watching the tomatoes grow. The trial lasted 3 days in mid-September. I testified on day 2, sat in that chair and told the whole story. The theft, the confrontation, the assault. Every detail, every number, every moment. Marcus's lawyer tried to make me look confused, vindictive. A bitter old woman who couldn't remember things clearly, who was punishing her son for imagined slights. But I had the evidence. Bank statements with 32 withdrawals, each exactly $3,000. Security footage showing Jessica at the ATM, clear as day, in the red Burberry coat I'd bought her. Hospital records documenting my injuries. Police photos of the bruises, the blood, the chaos of my kitchen. The 911 call recording where my voice cracked and broke, asking for help. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the foreman, a black woman about my age with gray locks and reading glasses, stood up and read the verdict. On the count of theft, we find the defendant Marcus Whitmore guilty. Marcus's face crumpled. On the count of elder financial abuse, we find the defendant Marcus Whitmore guilty. Jessica sat stone-faced in the gallery, her designer handbag clutched in her lap. On the count of assault and battery, we find the defendant Marcus Whitmore guilty. Marcus cried when they read the last one. Real tears, his shoulders shaking, his face buried in his hands. I sat in that courtroom and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, just a quiet acceptance that this was justice. This was right. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in prison. Jessica got 12 months for her role in the theft. They were ordered to pay back the full $30,000 plus interest, $42,000 total, and legal fees. 5 years probation after release. When the judge read the sentence, Jessica stood up and walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't look at Marcus. Their marriage was over. I knew it even if they didn't yet. Outside on the courthouse steps, a reporter from the local news asked me how I felt. Free, I said, and meant it. It's been 6 months since the trial. Spring has come again. My garden is planned, seeds ordered. I've got tomatoes and peppers and a whole section for herbs. The crow that used to peck at frozen ground is back. I've been leaving seeds. He brings his mate now. They're building a nest in the oak tree Bernard planted when Marcus was born. Full circle. Everything comes around. The $30,000 came back in installments, taken from the sale of their house at auction. They declared bankruptcy. Divorced 3 months after the trial. Marcus got out of prison early for good behavior, served 13 months. I heard through Dorothy that he's living in a studio apartment across town now, working as a delivery driver for Amazon, making $9 an hour plus tips. I don't think about him much anymore. Some days I forget I even had a son. Patricia asked me last week if I ever feel lonely. We meet for coffee every Thursday now, have become real friends, the kind who tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes, I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. But lonely is better than used. She laughed. Amen to that. I'm sitting in my garden now, on this first warm day of March. The crow and his mate are back, busy with their nest. I've been watching them for an hour, how they work together, how they take turns gathering twigs. I open my journal to a fresh page. Think about what to write, about what these past 15 months have taught me. Finally, I write it down. The lesson that cost me $30,000 and a son to learn: love without respect is just another word for abuse. Generosity without boundaries is just another word for being used. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is let people face the consequences of treating you badly. I close the journal, watch the crows, feel the sun on my face. I'm 75 years old now. My hip doesn't hurt anymore. My garden is green and growing. My bank account is slowly being replenished. My heart is healing, though the scar will always be there. But I'm free. For anyone who's been where I was, lying on a floor, bleeding and alone, wondering if standing up for yourself makes you the villain, let me tell you something. It doesn't. Your worth was never in their hands. It was always in yours. You just forgot for a while. And to anyone fighting their own battle right now, wondering if you're strong enough to set boundaries, to say no, to choose yourself, you are. You absolutely are. Your comeback is already being written. Stay quiet. Stay sharp. Let your actions speak louder than their excuses ever could. I stand up from my garden chair, Bernard's chair, the one he made with his carpenter's hands, and stretch. No pain, no stiffness, just strength. The gospel music drifts from my kitchen radio, the Winans singing Tomorrow, the same song that played the morning of Christmas Eve, the morning I didn't know would change everything. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow is on its way. I walk into my house, my home, the place Bernard built, the place I defended, the place that belongs to me and no one else. And I smile, because at 75 years old, I finally learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in the revenge. It's in the peace that comes after. It's in the morning coffee on your own porch. It's in the garden you plant with your own hands. It's in the life you build when you finally choose yourself. I chose myself, and I'd do it again.